If you're hearing this podcast while using an Android device, make sure you head on over to the Google Play Store and check out the Podcast Republic app and see if it's right for you. There's thousands of good reviews out there telling you how wonderful it is, so you don't have to listen to me. Check out the Podcast Republic app on the Google Play Store and see if you're ready to switch podcast players. Welcome to Dissecting the 80s. I am Trip Lano, one half of the Mega Podcasting Powers, and with me, as always, is a man who just finished programming the show and is excited to turn that responsibility over to you, the Macho Man Drew.
Andrew Lano, power to the people.
That's right. I feel like the tiniest version of like an old Nickelodeon thing.
Oh, like the Kids' Choice Awards?
Yeah, or the old Chuck E. Cheese ads where it's like, we're a kid, be a kid. It's like, we're, but it's like, I swear there was a Nickelodeon promotion where like kids programmed the network or something like that. This is, maybe I'm making this up.
I think there was, it might have been, I think, I'm going to guess it was called like Nicktoon Picktoon, where like you could, like a TRL situation where you could request.
Exactly that. Yes.
But I don't know if it would have cost money like TRL. Apparently, I didn't know TRL cost money because I didn't watch TRL. My boyfriend did because he was like, my mom gave me an allotment, and you could like, it was like $1 or something.
It must have been like a 1-900 number then. Like American Idol used to have a fee associated with it. I didn't know that about TRL, and I watched. I think
it was. I'm assuming it was. I could be misremembering, but he said that.
American Idol definitely had a financially based voting system, so it's possible TRL also did.
But yeah, that sounds vaguely familiar. Like there was like a block once a month that was like programmed by you.
Yeah, well, this month is programmed by you, the listener. This first episode is from our Patreon tier that has been closed because we were afraid that we would never get to do anything but Patreon episodes. So this is Michelle, our first Patreon supporters pick. Thank you, Michelle, for being with us for so long. Let's hear it from Michelle as to what we're doing with Pandemonium.
Hi, Trip and Andrew. It's Michelle. I'm very excited to hear your take on my Patreon listener choice of Pandemonium. This is one of those movies that I probably shouldn't have been watching as a 10 or 11-year-old on HBO as I did back in the early 80s. Probably didn't understand most of the stuff, but it was pretty, as you like to say, bananas from what I remember. I watched this constantly as a kid. I don't know what the appeal was. Kind of goofy, a little kind of scary, especially for me, the non-horror person. But anyway, I hope you guys have fun with it. Either way, I know I'm going to enjoy what you guys have to say and how it goes. And if for some reason you don't like it, this can, be payback for all those crazy movies you have made me listen to you guys talk about. So anyway, as always, love the show and looking forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that. No reason to beat around the bush. We watched Pandemonium, so you know what that means.
We got to go back. We got to go dissect the 80s. It's your 6 out of 10 success rate spoof. Something's going to be about your 6 out of 10 success rate spoof.
When the mega powers explode.
I'm talking about the 80s. Oh, yeah.
Great Scott.
Cream of the crop. Oh, yeah.
Mega powers, yeah.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
That feels pretty accurate to me.
Yeah, I like this movie way more than I thought I would. Not that I thought I would hate it, because I was like, it's an hour and 20 minutes. And then I was like, Eileen Brennan and Carol Kane, and then like 13 other names that I was like, I love these people. This might be my new favorite thing.
Tab Hunter's sneaking around in there.
In a very weird role for him.
Oh, you don't say? I will say I was very relieved that it didn't do the thing I thought it was going to do.
Which was?
That it only kind of did. Well, it almost is, like, the premise of it. So we've talked before about sort of the best way to do a spoof is you pick something and you basically remake that movie and then figure out where to put your cutaways and jokes.
Yes,
like
Airplane.
Airplane, great example, even though that one works, even though I have never seen Airport 77 or Airport 75.
Spaceballs.
But I'm talking Spaceballs. Yeah, if you love Star Wars, you'll get all the beats of Spaceballs. Another one that I point to all the time, and is honestly, I think I brought this up when we did our episode on She's All That last February, but the version of that story I've seen more is almost definitely Not Another Teen Movie, which is it spoofs all the teen stuff.
But the through line is She's All That, right?
Yeah. Yes. So the through line of this is almost Sleepaway Camp. Like, it's almost exactly Sleepaway Camp. But shifted perspective.
Yeah. I think this movie has so much going for it. It kind of reminds me of, like, if you had all the ingredients to make a cake, but you had no measuring tools. And so you, like, eyeballed it. So, like, it'll be a cake and, like, it'll be fine. Like, it'll taste fine, but it's not going to be perfect. That's what this feels like. It's got a lot going for it, a lot of heavy hitters, a lot of strong stuff. It's just not executed perfectly as often as it should be. And I truly am baffled as to why the Paul Reubens Canadian Mountie storyline were not actually involved with the main story. Like, that is a baffling decision to me.
Yes. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think there were 5 times in this movie where I at least out loud chuckled.
Oh, yeah.
Which is tough to do when you're watching a movie by yourself in the middle of the afternoon. You know, that is not ideal movie watching times. So
I got a few genuine laughs.
Yeah. And you know, like you said, all sorts of people. I don't know what Judge Reinhold's doing in here, but he does. You know what he not back down.
You know what he's doing? He's doing his Seinfeld performance.
Yeah, he kind of is.
It is very reminiscent of the way of his Seinfeld role.
But I will say, like, a thing about him that is unique is his unflinching desire to always just go for it. Because there's a world in which it's like, okay, we're making Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I go for it here in maybe a different way than I go for it in this movie, but he never shies away. Like, he always leans into the crazy thing he's asked to do and does it well. I was very impressed by Judge Reinhold here.
I always forget that, like, Gremlins is a subdued performance for him.
Yes. Yeah. He's definitely a big, broad guy, especially in the Beverly Hills Cop stuff.
It's been a minute since I've seen Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah. I assumed you'd pick up the reference from the Clerks cartoon.
Oh, that's even probably about the same length of time since I've seen the Clerks cartoon.
Okay.
I mostly remember the small selection of tiny adult magazines.
I have often been like, would there be a way that we would just do weird stuff on the Patreon as a bonus show, like a Clerks cartoon watch along? Because that's only 6 episodes.
I'd be fine with something like that.
Maybe. If you think that there should be a Patreon tier of weird oddities, you let us know. Just like a monthly grab bag.
Yeah.
Anyway, we start in Cleveland, 1963.
No, it's Indiana.
Indiana, sorry. The team is Cleveland.
Oh, I missed that. But it had to be there, Indiana.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. I wrote down Cleveland because the team on the field looks like the Cleveland Browns football team. Uniforms.
Okay.
That is why I've done this. So I'm not losing my mind. We go to a lady snooping in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
And she's snooping in Tab Hunter's locker. And there's a nice little, this is the first chuckle I had, and it was very early in the movie. I was like, oh, this is a good sign. She's like rifling through the locker. I think she smells the jersey first, and then she has the jock in her hands and is like, oh.
Yeah. Well, I liked her line where she was like, "Oh, I love you so much. If only you could love me too. If only I didn't have this Brooklyn accent." And I was like, "That's really I love that."
Yeah, this has a sort of Muppet energy.
Yes, it's as if the Muppets did Airplane.
Yes. So I just, like, not 2 days before I watched this movie, I didn't know this about myself, but I put the Muppet movie on because it's on Disney Plus, and I was working on something, and I just wanted, like, you know, noise in the background, and I kept going like, I don't remember this part. And so I have definitely seen most of the Muppet movie, but I don't know that I ever have, like, or at least if I have, it's
got the fork in the road
more
joke.
Than 15 or 20 years. Yeah, I know that, and I know the part where, like, the pie comes off the sign and stuff, but there's a bunch of things that I just had no recollection of, and I was like, well, it's been at least 20 years or so since I've watched this movie at minimum, so that explains a lot. But that movie is very sort of segmented. It's almost like sketches together with a through line, and this movie feels a lot the same, that it's a bunch of sketches and gags with a loose through line.
A bit too loose, I think is the movie's downfall.
Agreed. Yeah. If we could cinch this a little tighter, I think it's a way better movie.
Edie McClurg shows up.
Yeah, that's right. And opposite her, the man playing her husband is the guy in The Godfather.
It's not her husband. It's just the coach.
Oh, the coach. That's right. The coach is played by the guy who was really nervous to ask Don Vito for a favor in the beginning of The Godfather.
Oh.
And it's this like really cool small moment in The Godfather as this dude is like peeing his pants with nervousness about having to go ask the big man for a favor. But I was like, is that the guy? And then I'm trying to like, I couldn't remember that character's name in The Godfather, and it's like a pretty hard thing to Google about The Godfather, believe it or not. And then I couldn't figure out if he was the dad or the coach, which you just heard me screw up again here, even though I had figured it out. So yeah, I was like, okay, I have to figure out who this man is.
Yeah, well, you know what's really funny? 6 years before this movie, Edie McClurg plays a teenager in Carrie's class.
That feels about right.
So plays a teenager in Carrie's class. 6 years later, plays the mom of a college football player.
I feel like there are several types of people. Like one is the normal like A to Z age progression. Like every time you see them, they look a little bit older. Then there's the people who age in like a burst where it's like, I'm 18. Oh shit, I'm 45.
Yeah. Brimley.
And then there's the people, the Brimley. And then there's the people who do the opposite of that. It's like, wow, you look great for your age. And then you hit a point and then the cliff has arrived. And it's like, oh no, you're old. Mm-hmm. When did that happen? So I feel like Edie McClurg is that sort of middle category of people where it's like she hit 22 and then suddenly they're like, okay, it's time for you to play mothers. And she's like, no, I'm 22. They're like, yeah, again, sorry.
Well, then a few years later, she played the secretary in Ferris Bueller, which like didn't feel like,
I feel like the secretary
motherly.
I think that woman, that character, Grace, I think Grace could have had a kid or two for sure.
Huh. I just want more Edie McClurg in my life. I wanted more locker room silliness.
Yes.
Because this scene kind of reminded me of, I don't know, there's a scene in Still Magnolias in a locker room where someone's being interviewed for a radio station, and the big moment is like there's a lot of butts in the background that the ladies of the salon are like, oh, like eyeing them up. And I was like, I wanted some of that. Like I definitely wanted a few butts or like some goofiness in the background because it was such high energy and antics going on with Tab, his coach, and Edie McClurg for the picture.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's genuinely stunning to me that there's no nudity of any kind in this movie.
Yeah, not at all.
I was flabbergasted that there was not a breast or a butt anywhere in this.
I mean, I guess that's how you know it's not a Roger Corman production.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, we should say the director of this movie, whose name has just leapt out of my head. I believe his first name is Joe. He directed Alice, Sweet Alice.
Really?
One of those 70s. Yes. It's one of those 70s movies that gets constantly put on lists of, unseen horror movies that you
Wait, is Alice, Sweet Alice the one with like Brooke Shields or?
Yes. And the girl wears like a plastic mask.
Yes,
with painted.
I confused that one with, oh God, I'm gonna give a loose plot and see if you can grab it, and if you can't, we'll drop it. It's a movie where the guy from Invasion of the Body Snatchers of the 80s is in Rome after his daughter has been murdered, or in Venice after his daughter has been murdered, and thinks he keeps seeing her everywhere. And so he like chases her down, and the movie ends with like, spoiler, him getting stabbed by what turns out to be a little person in a coat that is not his daughter.
Yes, that is a real movie, and the actor that you're thinking of is Sutherland.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Donald Sutherland. I don't know the name of the movie,
but I confused that and Alice Sweet Alice.
That sequence of things. So I don't know if that's. I don't know. I haven't seen Alice Sweet Alice. I was getting to. It's every year. I do my big horror binge, and I try to hit some different decades of. I've tried all sorts of different things in the past, but I always try to hit some decades that are way before my time. And in that case, it's one of the 70s ones that I just haven't gotten to yet, but it comes up all the time. But he directed that in 76, then this in 82. And then he goes into production design, which is a completely, very different field from being a writer and a director. But he did a lot of television. He did all of Veronica Mars.
Oh, really?
Production design, or if not all of it, the majority of it. He did 152 episodes of Castle. There were like 175 of those.
Wow.
He did all but one season. Yeah. So a lot of work in that regard, and a bunch of movies you've heard of as well, but I'm not going to run down his whole filmography in that regard. But Yes, I am. Halloween Town. We did like 5 or 6 of the Halloween.
Well, there's
towns.
only 4.
And okay, but also
Did he do?
recently mentioned on this podcast, Wishmaster 2: Evil Never Dies.
Shut up.
Great sequel. And Johnny Tsunami and Horse Sense.
So he got roped into the Disney World. Did he do Halloween Town 1 and 2?
Yes. I see a Halloween Town, and then I see a Halloween Town High.
So he did 1 and 3? That's weird.
Apparently, yeah.
And that explains, okay, never mind. That makes a lot of sense because in the second one, Halloween Town spends a lot of time being gray and boring. So that makes sense that they lost their production designer and they were like,
Yeah, so a very interesting career that he ended up in that. I was reading an interview with him talking about the ins and outs of production design on Veronica Mars, because that's a show with like a crazy fan base where people like track this guy down to do an interview. And it was I learned a lot about production design on television, which is he basically has to do all of the work of location scouting, and like they'd go to people's houses and have to repaint them and stuff. It was fascinating. But anyway, interesting career. He kind of he bumbled around, found his niche, and then stayed with it very lucratively for a very long time.
That's awesome.
Successfully. Now I don't know if he made a lot of money, but he had a lot of work, so people must like him. This coming up here, so back to the Muppet energy. This is a Muppet gag to me.
100%.
My favorite, except for the part where they die. This is a Muppet gag. The cheerleaders are on the field and they're all holding giant vegetables, and I'm like, is this
because they said they were like, our halftime show was a salute to vegetables. This is an instance where I think tighter editing, which is crazy because this movie is 75 minutes long, and I'm like, you can cut out.
It might be 74 minutes long.
I'm like,
it's
you can
very quick.
I think if this sequence was like 30 seconds shorter, it would be so much funnier.
Yeah,
because the Bambi, the woman who was in the dressing room, in the locker room, tries to be like,
you make that mistake every time we have a locker room on the show.
I do.
Just so you know. That is the longest running gag on this program.
And it's not even on purpose.
The first time we did a sports movie. Yeah. The first sports movie we did, you did the dressing room. I swear this happened. That's
but there's no star on the chain link. Bambi wants to go with the cheerleaders to the malt shop, and they're like, no, cheerleaders only. And so they all start to leave, and we see a gloved hand. There's a giant box that says "Danger, Javelins," and
yes, but then you open
there's
it and
only
there's
one
just a javelin.
And so I think it would have been funnier. You either needed it to say "Danger, single javelin," or "Danger, javelins," and when you open it, those infomercials with like Tupperware lids just come raining out. You needed that with javelins. You need one of those two.
Alternate gag when they pull the door handle, the S falls off.
Okay.
So it's like danger javelins. They go to open it and the S comes tumbling down.
So this hand grabs the javelin and throws it, and it magics its way through the hallways. And
so pause right there for 1 second. Where did you figure out at what point in this gag did you figure out where it was going?
The first of the 3 times they cut to the cheerleaders with vegetables.
Okay, because there's cheerleaders with vegetables.
Because they're
walking
original.
away.
The first time we see them, they're you can kind of they're walking away from her, so they're holding it in front of their vegetables, and they're in a mob. They're in a blob. They're not in a line, so you can kind of see a broccoli, a tomato, whatever. The next shot of them, it is from the side, and they are in a direct line, all holding their vegetable exactly at their waist. And I was like, oh, okay. And then they showed you that 2 more times, and I was like, yeah. I got there. I'm ready.
yeah. Because it was like javelins, and then the cut to them in a line, and I was like, oh, I see what we're doing here. And I started laughing even before it happened, which I was pretty pleased with. I thought the javelin fly was pretty cool effect. It was
I liked
mostly it. POV attached to the camera, probably. And then I really liked the every cheerleader does a quarter turn to camera and goes
I did, because it makes no sense, which I love.
Yes.
That's my favorite kind of stupid. It's very Mel Brooksy.
It's they would all get hit essentially simultaneously, but in this version of it, it's 1, 2, 3, 4.
But also that when it shows them dead, they're all facing the opposite direction, so they couldn't possibly have turned around.
Yes, yeah, really, really delightful. So they get shish kebabbed. I do wish there was a slightly longer shot of all of them shish kebab together, like the skewer through I don't want it to be gross.
No, not at all.
But just the cheerleaders with the vegetables and then a very clear stick going through all of them would have been funny.
Or if they fell onto something that looked like a grill.
Yes,
like there's
I was really hoping
a segment of chain link fences on the ground for like, I don't know what, and then they fall on it.
Yeah, totally agree. Or it was like, they don't have the budget for that in this movie, but do you remember the giant grill in The Burbs?
Oh, yeah.
If there had been a thing like grill up the bulls or something, like whatever their opponents were. And
a homecoming float with a grill on it.
Yes, exactly that.
Phil Hartman showed up for a day rate.
Yeah, well, this is probably like, oh, I got a gig. Hey, Mom, I'm very excited about this gig that I have got.
That's true. It is 82.
Yeah.
I wanted more of him. I was so happy to see him, and then I was like,
so excited.
Oh, you're gone.
And he has a great joke, too. I forget what the setup is, but his response, there's a threat of a maniac, and then Phil Hartman's response is, or a very large chef.
He's great. He's brilliant, and if I think about him too hard, I get sad because he was so brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this leads to a very Full Moon High sequence of spinning newspapers that reveal like cheerleaders murdered. I almost because this happened in 1963, and then the movie takes place. Does the movie take place in 1982 as a contemporary?
That's my assumption. It doesn't say, but yeah, that's my assumption.
I would have liked the newspapers to have very big dates on them too, like 1968.
Agreed.
Pom pom explosion. 1972. I don't know, bus crash, whatever.
Yeah. Agreed. I think that would have been good. Here comes Squiggy in the house. A favorite of many people out there, and not this podcast. The actor who played Squiggy on Laverne and Shirley is the guy behind the counter.
Oh, Pepe?
Yes.
You mean the weasel from Roger Rabbit?
He is the weasel in Roger Rabbit, but he also is Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley. And we talked about this
Legoland.
In our
Lego Island.
Yeah. And he's in our used cars episode quite a bit as he's in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
He was one of the two guys with the heart thing. Something about a heart surgery in used cars.
So that movie's kind of a blur.
And then we get a really great bit where a woman sort of doing the Romani woman from the original
Wolfman.
Thank you. I kept wanting to say werewolf. I was like, nope, that's not the title of the movie. Where she does the like,
even the man who says his prayers and says his prayers by day when the moon is full will become she sets it up like a were cheerleader, and I was very excited to see if that was going to go somewhere.
Agreed. Yes. This movie is 10 times funnier if Tab Hunter is a were cheerleader, because the woman who snuck into his locker room was a were cheerleader and bit him. Excessively funnier.
But then you need to put him.
Tab Hunter was not here for that.
Then he needs to show up in the movie more, though. And I feel like I would rather give that opportunity to a Phil Hartman or a Paul Reubens.
Sure.
But that's my personal bias. Well, you missed one of my favorite stupid bits of production design. Bambi, the woman who watched the cheerleaders get skewered, opens up a cheerleading camp, which hasn't happened in 30 years or 20 years because of the murders or whatever. So she walks up to the school, and there's a banner, and it's like held up by 4 strings, and the left 2 are like taut and good, and the right 2 are like slack and terrible. And it says like Bambi's cheerleading camp, and by the word lead, it's like the painting looks rushed and hurried, and the camp is like single strokes, so it looks like someone like ran out of time painting it and just stuck it up.
I completely missed this. That's great.
It's such a stupid little bit of production design that I was like, that's so funny.
I was taking notes or something. I totally missed that.
But yeah, that
I also really liked this next bit here is like very Airplane, where she starts explaining like, I'm opening a cheerleading camp, and she
turns and spikes to the camera, like looks right down the barrel of the camera, and is like, I was a witness to the crimes 20 years ago, and I'm opening up the cheerleading camp. And underneath it says exposition in blinking cartoon letters. And then
very Mel Brooks sort of
Pepe
thing.
And his mom Saul say something else, and she turns back to the camera and it says more exposition, and then they do it a third time and it says still more exposition, and I was like, rule of threes.
It was really good. Roll of threes, exactly. So the gist of this movie is she's opening up a cheerleading camp, which hasn't been done there in a very long time, and every time there were cheerleaders in this area before, they got murdered horribly.
Yes,
is the sort of the gist of where we're at. We cut to a gag that I'm sure is like your favorite thing. You had one of your favorites, Carol Kane, doing a bit that you can't stop doing
with another of my favorites, Eileen Brennan from Clue.
That's right. Yes.
And Jeepers Creepers, I realized. I didn't remember that she was the old woman in Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah.
When I like went to her Wikipedia and it said that, and I was like, oh, she's that old lady with the cats.
Yeah. I found that movie super scary, but I've never revisited once I found out what a creep that guy is.
I feel like I'll wait till he's dead and then watch it again.
Even then, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, I'm not going to give him money, but yeah. It says victim number 1. I almost wish it also said their name underneath.
Yes.
Because I think that would have set up a few jokes a little better. But it's Carol Kane as a Carrie stand-in and Eileen Brennan as her mom, a Piper Laurie stand-in. And then there's a great, like, because what I like about Airplane and Mel Brooksy and even the first Scary Movie or two is that, like, you take the thing we know and then inject a moment of, like, this is not that thing. So she says, like, everyone will see your dirty pillows. And Carol Kane goes, they're not dirty pillows, they're breasts, mama. And, like, moves her doll to show her chest. And Eileen Brennan goes, no, those are tits. I'm talking about those dirty pillows, and, like, points to a homeless man holding actual dirty pillows. And I was like, that the word tits is the perfect, like, emphasis in this to, like, break it up for you.
Yeah, and that leads with a nice back and forth with the homeless gentleman of, like, those aren't my pillows. Why would that matter? Like, what?
It's great. I'm very curious so they decided to emphasize Carol Kane's telekinesis with this, like, eye laser moment. And I'm so curious as to why you would add any kind of production value like that when that's not even, like, remotely what Carrie looks like.
No, it's she straight up has Cyclops laser vision.
That's what I thought. I was like, oh, is she boiling something? And then she lifted her mom in the air, and I was like, I guess that's just... For some reason, they were like, we need to spend money on her telekinesis instead of just using a color light.
Yeah. I wonder if it somehow was able to hide stuff.
Maybe, like wire, like fishing line and stuff.
Right. Like, I wonder if it was harder, if it was like making it look more ridiculous made it easier to do the effects without having to, like, stress and spend more money.
That's possible. That's definitely possible. I didn't think about that.
So now we meet Judge Reinhold, who's also getting ready to go off to cheer camp. And
at first I thought his hair was white. And I was like, is he a counselor?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, is he an old guy? No, he's blonde.
And his dad is the great Cosmo from Singing in the Rain. I don't know if you noticed. I assumed you did. Doing a bit about the there's a couple of really good time jokes. The one you mentioned, and I think this one is funny too. There's two here where it's like, don't touch yourself, you'll go blind. And then the door opens and the dad comes
blind
out
as
like
a blind
selling
man.
Pencils. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, you know, you're our favorite son. You're not the black sheep of this family. And they cut to a black sheep literally on the doorstep, like bleeding. Bleating with a T, not bleeding. Which I both like very silly nonsense jokes. So my kind of business.
Yeah, that is exactly my jam. His mom is Kay Ballard, who is another famous, like of the era of Donald O'Connor performer.
Okay. Then we do a nice breakfast game show bit, which introduces us.
No, it's a pageant. It's not a game show.
Oh, pageant.
And I was obsessed with this energy. I loved this energy.
Yeah, it was great. The little brother coming in with the eggs and then, like, wanting to immediately leave, and the dad, like, yanking him back into his place was really, really funny. The mom, like, barely touching this toast as she flung it onto the plate, I liked a lot. And then we meet the character who's victim 3. I forget how they're numbering them. Are they just in order?
She's 3.
Okay.
That would have been a funnier gag too if it was like victim 1, victim 5, victim 6, victim 2, 4. Like they weren't in number order.
Well, I actually thought that it was a little silly that the movie didn't tell you the actual victim
order
list.
Yeah. That would have been cool. I would have liked that, but
because it also would have been funny to me if it was like Carol Kane's was like she survives.
Oh, that would have been fun.
Yeah, like we all know the final girl tropes that we're spoofing here. Like you could play with it a little bit.
And
did you figure out at this point that they were doing this bit from it's either Great Muppet Caper or Muppets Take Manhattan, where everybody's name rhymes? Phil, Lil,
yes,
Gil. Okay.
Wait, is it? I don't think it's Caper.
It's like Candy, Mandy, Sandy. I don't. It's a movie we've done on the show, so it's either Great Muppet Caper or Muppets Take Manhattan.
I think it's Manhattan.
Okay.
Victim 4 goes up to a hot dog truck, and the guy who was eating at the hot dog truck who got fired as a windsock, I thought was Paul Reubens. And after the Phil Hartman disappointment, I was like, if this is my only Paul Reubens scene, I am very angry. It's not him.
I thought he was the guy from the original Muppet movie who like tries to help Kermit in the end, but I didn't bother to look.
Yeah. I loved this character and everything about her. She's this like bossy, it's this big like bossy girl energy that I loved. Cause she says she's very much, is it Crystal Lake? Is it Friday the 13th 1 or 2 where the girl hitches a ride and we don't see the driver and then chases her into the woods? I think it's the first one.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think you're right.
It felt like that, where the energy where she was like, can you tell me the way to cheer camp? And everyone just runs away. They like close the door on the hot dog cart.
The windsock guy jumps inside.
And this is where we learn how bossy she is, because she comes in, she's like, just tell me which way to go. And the guy's like, I'll drive you. And she goes, what car do you have? And he says, I don't know, a 63 Camaro or whatever. And she was like, I would never get in anything older than a 78. I'll walk. And then we see her like thumbing for a hitch on the bridge. And then it cuts to, it's like almost a star wipe of going up to people and being like, I'll take, I need 3 references, no family. And it's a line of traffic and she's handing everyone a reference sheet to give her a ride.
And each car is a completely different type of vehicle. There's a taxi, there's a fire truck. I think there's like an ice cream van.
There's the surfers in the Jeep. It's great.
Joke. Yes. Yeah. It's a very good joke.
Next we see Andy and Randy. Randy was in Freaky Friday, which is his sort of claim to fame. In both, actually.
The Jamie Lee Curtis one and the old one? Okay.
He played the love interest in the original and then played a delivery man with the same name in the remake.
They should have slipped him into the Vince Vaughn one as like a shopkeep or something.
Oh, that would have been fun. He like working at the store with with the mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just his ticket to ride forever. It's just anything.
I mean, hey, look.
Anything Freaky Friday related.
Yeah. I mean, there is a not terrible chance that person could be dead by now. They're probably at least in their 60s. Some people die young, but if not, like, get them in that Freaky movie. Yeah. What are we doing here?
But so Andy and Randy are victims 5 and 6. It's weird that the people in this movie are either like very well-known names or who? Like, there's not a lot of middle ground on these performers, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think you probably had some local people stuck around here too, maybe.
They all arrive.
Judge Reinhold with this mop of blonde hair just feels all sorts of wrong to me. When you see him in the full daylight in front of the school, I'm like, this is the wrong.
It's not a bad wig, though. I'll give it, assuming it's a wig.
I thought they dyed his hair.
That's possible, but to dye hair that dark, that blonde, and not have roots showing is a feat. Because I get roots in like a week when I go blonde.
Well, it probably touched him up a lot.
But then, but that's a big expense. You know what I mean? Like, the idea of, like, we can buy a wig.
It's also not impossible that this movie was shot in 10 days.
That's true. That's very true. You're right.
It's very possible they were like, we are going to shoot this before your roots run out. Like, we're dyeing your hair, we're shooting all of your scenes front-loaded, and then you're off the movie because we don't want to touch up your hair. Seems like very possible.
That, you know what? Not wrong. So they arrive at the school, and the woman who was looking for a ride got a ride from the president and the Secret Service, who were jogging alongside the car.
Yeah. Kudos for making it clear that it's Reagan. -1 point for not getting a person who looked more like Reagan or did the, are you sure you don't want a jelly bean? Kind of Reagan.
He kind of did. There was sort of a Reaganish energy.
He just, not Reagan-y enough. Is all.
They definitely hid behind sunglasses and a tinted window.
But he held up the jelly beans, and then I heard you in my head going, "Eat them in hell, you rotten bastard!"
Reagan chokes on jelly beans in hell. The official stance of Andrew 2021. Reagan chokes on jelly beans in hell. So they all introduce.
I got a genuine guffaw at the. Oh, sorry.
What, the jelly beans may work on Nancy, but not on me? I liked that line.
No, that I thought that was a good line, but I was jumping to the next scene. So if you want to talk about this one, go ahead.
Yeah, so they all do their. Bambi comes in and it's like, sound off, troops. And it's Andy, Randy, Candy, Sandy, Mandy, and Glenn. And everyone turns to look and he goes, Dandy. And like, that would have. I guess they would have spoiled this joke, but if the victims, like victim number 1, Sandy, they all said that, and then it was like Glenn, and then that went away, Dandy.
Yeah, agreed. It made me think that he was the killer for a lot of it.
And I kind of wish they leaned into that, because
yes, agreed.
So this is my big. We're about to get into my big problem with the movie, is that like they have a Canadian Mountie and his horse and Paul Reubens doing a lot, and it's hilarious, but they aren't actually involved in the plot of the movie. It's like they have their own thing going. Right. And I was like, why? Like, why can't they just investigate? Like, they can just be the investigators. Yes. Right.
Like, my thought is, we have the scene where the first woman gets hurt. It's like, instead of making that a gag, make her get hurt because the killer screwed up, and now the Mountie is investigating this.
Yes.
He's like trying to keep these kids
because
safe and have like, let's get them all hanging out.
We keep seeing the same gloved hand that threw the javelin 20 years ago, like popping out of stuff at Sheer Camp. And then we learned, like, oh, there's a prison break. Oh, there's an asylum break. And they're like, oh, they must be blah, blah, blah. I'm like, but we already know it's not them, because they were, like, the killer's already here. You know what I mean?
Exactly. No, I totally agree.
So we cut to the police station where the Canadian Mountie.
This is where I had.
This is what I meant when I said I had a
great, genuine guffaw. Yeah.
So we're like, it's sort of a tight close up on the Canadian Mountie at his desk, and it pulls back and you see that he's on his horse, and his desk is built around his horse's head, and his horse has his own desk beneath him. And it is just the best visual bit of comedy ever.
Really delightful. And that it's a really bad horse puppet is even better.
I don't think it's always a horse puppet.
No, but in this sequence,
oh, is it?
When it comes around and he's talking to him, I thought so.
Because later,
it looked like felt.
Later, it looks like the horse is in the car, and I was like, how did they get that? Like, what? So
yeah. There's some scenes where he's riding a horse that it would be illogical for it not to just be a horse.
Yes,
but I thought this one was not that.
It's possible. And then we meet Paul Reubens, and I was like, okay, here we go. I'm ready for Paul Reubens, and because he's. At this point in his career, he's doing Pee-wee on stage, but he hasn't done it on a big scale. He might have done like one TV special, right, but it's not like the household name that it is. And you can see that like he's basically playing a version of Pee-wee in this movie.
Oh, for sure.
And I love him so much. He's
kind of wearing a Nazi outfit to start, though, and I had a lot of questions.
I didn't get Nazi. I got janitor. Like he to me seemed like a custodian.
Oh, yeah. The fact that it's a one piece is definitely that. It was more that tan color. It's just like Nazi uniform in my brain. And I was like, why are we doing this?
They get a phone call from the warden of the jail. It was also confusing. I didn't get that it was a jail and an asylum break. I did not understand why we had both in this movie.
Right. Well, only for the gag that happens in a minute.
But like, no.
Oh, I agree with you.
No. What do you mean the gag that happens in a minute?
The prisoner is hitchhiking and he gets picked up by the guy from the asylum, and they have a conversation where it's like, I broke out of the prison. Oh, I broke out of the asylum.
That's true. Okay, that is a fun little bit, but yeah. The warden...
That is the answer to your question, I think.
I think so. The warden is played by Eve Arden, who was in Grease, and also in like the original like 1930s Ziegfeld Follies in New York. Like, that is a crazy career.
I don't know that. Yeah, for sure. This is her last movie, actually, I believe.
No, Grease 2 was her last movie.
Okay, I thought it said that on the Wikipedia.
No, I think maybe Grease 2 was the same year as this, but either one of them would have been her last then. And she's a delight in this movie. She is. She reminds me a bit of Juno from Beetlejuice.
Is that the woman at the like
Their caseworker.
DMV? Yeah.
Yeah.
Who, the hello kind of voice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, agreed entirely.
She's she and this woman, the warden and Juno are like the yin and yang, the salt and the pepper, the sweet and the sour versions of each other.
Yeah.
Because she's being tied up on the phone, like being like, hey, there's a prison break happening, and the crazy serial killer who turns his victims into furniture escaped, and the guy tying her up is just like letting her do it on the phone, and she's like, I have to go, they're gonna gag me now, and he's like, would you like a red bandana or a black bandana?
Yeah, I love this whole interplay with the prisoners messing with her, but sort of like in a funny way.
It's
like it seems like the non-rapey Revenge of the Nerds parts, right? Where like the energy is very goofy and gag oriented, and it's like, oh, we're getting one over on you.
it again. I keep saying it. It felt very Mel Brooksy, airplaney, that sort of classic spoof era of like there's no danger. So like there's no danger, but we're just gonna play it straight. Of like I'm getting kidnapped. Oops, I'm getting tied up.
Right.
What are you gonna do?
By the way, from the internet, I think Wikipedia must just be wrong because Grease 2 came out in June, but this says this is the last feature that Arden appeared in.
Oh.
So I don't know who did the math, but they were incorrect.
And then, so do all three boys sleep in the same dorm?
It sure seems like
But
it.
the girls it was weird, because Andy and Randy are in their room.
I thought Andy and no, because later we see Carol Kane is sharing a room with the woman who gets megaphoned.
Yes, which is Sandy.
Yeah, this. While I appreciated the gag, I was literally unable to follow the names of the characters.
Candy is Carol Kane. Sandy is her roommate. Mandy is the one who, the pageant queen.
The blonde? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess that means that Mandy got her own room. And so did Judge Reinhold.
Must have drawn the short straw.
They like pull out a leather nun magazine, but it's like a man leather nun. And they had made a joke that Judge Reinhold was shaving his palms, and then he comes in with like the tissue or the toilet paper spots on the face, and then opens his hand and also has them on his palm. And I was like, that's a great little payoff.
Yeah, I thought it was really good too. Also, I thought he said balls, not palms. And then when Judge Reinhold came with the palms, I was like, oh, that's a funnier joke, and it's less gross.
Yes, very much. For some reason, we keep cutting to Salt, the Eastern European woman, washing a mirror, and then she breaks it.
Yeah, it's very strange.
I
thought it was supposed to be like it breaks and the guy's like reaching through it, very Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, no, it's just
that.
She just broke it because she's ugly, I guess.
I guess that's what it's supposed to be. I didn't put that together, but
I don't know.
That's probably it.
I wanted more out of her because she was great.
Yeah, I think so too. And she was doing obviously she's doing a very specific impression as a performance, but it's a good impression. She's doing a good job at it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, I just want to hang out with it more. Over at the asylum, we meet a man who thinks he's a chicken. And it's very quickly like, oh, no, you're a cat, not a chicken. Go deal with the mice. And he switches. It's very, I'm sure you did this in acting classes. We did some of this in improv where it was like, be a dog, be a cat, be a whatever, inhibit these animal behaviors. Yeah. Thank you. Inhabit. Thanks. Where he's like doing a chicken thing, flexing his shoulders and his arms, and he switches to cat and he's like pretending to lick his hand and wipe his hair with it. It was just very strange.
We did some of that. I remember mostly the big thing I remember doing that was in our acting Shakespeare class, because a lot of that class was about like breaking down formality, because that's everyone's instinct with Shakespeare is to be like, oh,
yeah.
So one day my teacher, she paired us up. And she was like, okay, I want you to do you all have to pick the animal that makes sense that your character would be, and then be that animal and do your scene. And we were like, huh? And she was like, I was Iago in Othello. I was like, I don't know, I'm a house cat because Othello is like a lion. She was like, great, get on all fours. And I was like, oh, you mean like legit crawl? She was like, yes, you're all crawling around. Like if you two are big cats.
Read my lips, you are a cat.
Yes. So I had me and my scene partner crawling around like a lion and a house cat doing Shakespeare.
I would see the version of that play with people as cats perform.
So it's like
the
Cats costume, the movie, the like musical Cats costumes in Othello.
Yes. Yeah. Well, like also lions and other animals.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's do Hamlet, but the Lion King.
Okay.
So I want everybody in appropriate animal wear of various types.
Just take the costumes from the Broadway musical The Lion King and do Hamlet.
No. I want it worse than that. I want it to be much more like big silly animals, not like a cool interpretation of African art. I want it dumber.
There we go.
I want it louder and dumber.
Okay. So yeah, the Mountie investigates the asylum. There's I was confused because I thought for a second, I was confused that there was both a prison break and an asylum break, but there wasn't a full asylum break. Just the one asylum guy ran away.
Right.
But the asylum seemed like it was not being run. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, it seemed like the people inside were running the show. I did really like, this is our shock treatment room, and then we cut in there, and the guy's all tied up in a straitjacket, and it's like, your mother's dead. Your car's been stolen. And he's like, nothing's happening. Ha ha ha, laughing in their face. And then the doctor's like, here's your bill. And he just starts screaming. I was like, this is very stupid, but I like it.
That's, again, very Muppet energy. Like, that's what they would call shock treatment.
Yes. Because and the other thing with the Muppets, when Andy and Randy crash their car at the arrival, like backing up a little bit here, one of them literally goes, waka waka.
Oh, really? I missed that.
Yeah. So we go to this is where the pickup happens. Like the prisoner picks up the asylum guy that we talked about, and the asylum guy's wearing a very strange mask.
Yeah, I hated it. It was very unsettling. And I didn't get why he was wearing a mask.
So I thought it was supposed to be like he had a perfect, almost like a Mission Impossible, like he had a perfect mask of like the doctor, say, and that's how it enabled him to escape. But I couldn't pick it.
I wish the movie had a line of like why he liked masks or something.
Yes. Yeah.
I did really enjoy. I know it was weird and creepy out of context, but in universe, it like the James Bond thing we have.
Yeah.
Judge Reinhold is talking to Mandy, and she's like, "You're Glenn," and he like points to his name. And he's like, he goes, "I am." He goes, "Let me guess your name," and puts his hand on her name tag, which is on her boob, and then guesses while holding her boob, and then goes.
But the first one is a little above. It's not quite as grabby as it's a little.
And then when he guesses her name, he puts his hand on the other side, which has her like the school logo or whatever. And it's like, now let me guess what school you go to. And I was like, that was a fun, like, clearly they're both into it. So it's not skeevy.
Yes.
Which I guess is key to that, to the joke. But
yeah,
I liked the way that was played.
Like if you showed that scene to somebody out of context, they'd be like, no, wait a second. Be like, no. Like they like each other. Clearly it's like established in the movie.
Mm-hmm. And then as they're doing warm-ups, Pepe and Saul have a tour, a dead cheerleaders tour that like, it's like I call them gators, those cars or mini cars.
They're like a golf cart type thing.
Yeah. So it's like that with like 4 carts on the back of like tourists and Pepe's like, here's the scene of the brutal cheerleading murders. Take a picture of these ones before they die. And then he goes,
get a glimpse because it's sure to go away quickly.
He goes, Saul is also selling commemorative souvenirs. And she holds up a coffin and pushes a button and it opens and there's like a Barbie cheerleader inside. And I was like, I want that.
It's really good.
I love that.
Yeah.
So they leave and Bambi, there's a fun
gag with Bambi trying to shoo them out of the arena.
It's very Leslie Nielsen, it feels like.
Not the arena. Yes. And she had just been like, okay, guys, follow me. And she's doing like an exercise. And then so she starts like frantically waving them out of the gym. Everybody is copying her, which is very nice.
Mm-hmm. And then she tells them, does she tell them the truth that people died or does she say that everything will be fine?
I think she does. She does at some point. I can't remember if it's right here or later. I didn't write it down here, but that doesn't mean it's not here.
So she leaves, and then there's some great physical bits with the cheer camp brochure, because Sandy says like, "Oh, she's off her rocker," and Judge Reinhold holds up the cheer camp brochure and is like, "It doesn't say she lost her rocker in the brochure." And then they cut away and they cut back to him and he's wearing glasses now. And he reaches through where the lens should be to scratch his eye as he talks about the brochure.
Yes.
And I was like, that's perfect. That's the perfect dub.
Yeah. Yeah. For this movie, for sure. It's the exact right tone.
And then we go to the morgue and there's a coffee table with a police badge and a gun holster glued to it. And they're like, this was Detective.
It's even better though. Because she's like, 1, 2, 3. All right, here's where your man is, and she's like sort of telling them to brace themselves. She doesn't say that exact words, but her energy is like, brace yourselves for this. And then she pulls the drawer open, and it's a coffee table.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. She's going through the morgue like drawers, and then pulls out a coffee table on one, and they're like, "This was Detective, Mark. All right, I can tell by his gun."
Yeah, it's like it's the way that a medical examiner would show you a werewolf victim who got like mauled.
Yeah,
like brace yourselves, this one's yucky.
I almost wish going further in that because she pulls it out and it's a box. Because at first it took me a second when she like pulled the whole sheet off. I was like, is it a box? And I was like, oh no, it's people get turned in. I almost wish she did the like, I only lift a corner of the sheet. Like you only need to see this.
Take a peek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Paul Reubens could have been like, let me see the whole thing, and like rips the sheet off.
The payoff for the earlier gag of he turns people into furniture being a literal coffee table and a morgue drawer is delightful.
I love it. Every instance of that is perfect because they do it a couple times, and it's such a beautiful, stupid thing and a great way to get around the expense of having to have dead bodies in your movie.
Yeah, for sure. The other option being get on the slab and hold your breath.
Yeah. So the Mountie decides to go check out the cheerleading camp, which, like, again, why couldn't he have been involved the whole time? He should have.
Yeah, agreed.
Whatever. So he shows up to.
Especially because at this point, he starts to sort of have a relationship with Carol Kane, and then he goes away again. And I'm like, well, no.
You have to come back.
Reasons to keep him here. Yeah.
But he goes up to Bambi. He rides in on his horse into the gym, and Bambi shakes the horse's hoof. And I was like, that's so great.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of confusion where she sent off one of the kids to get a fake horse for a cheer routine. And so when the Mountie shows up with a real horse, she doesn't know that it's a real horse.
Yeah. And then the Mountie makes eyes at Carol Kane, and they have in any other movie would be like a dream sequence. And Carol Kane is in this like Regency dress, and he's still in his Mountie outfit or whatever. Maybe it's not a Regency dress. It's just like a fancy gown. And they sing a song, like a classic. I don't remember what it is, but they sing a song.
I tried to Google the lyrics, and the lyrics that one of the parts that they sing more than once is also the chorus of a more modern song, and I couldn't find the old one.
So they sing and they have a moment, and the camera's just on them. And then we hear applause, and Carol Kane goes back to the group still wearing the dress, and everyone's like, you did a great job.
Yeah. Then we move on to some trust falls where we're leaping into our friend's arms. And this leads to Judge Reinhold like pushing everyone away in a top and tails. Well, he doesn't have the hat on, but like a top and
he might as well.
And is like going to do it himself and fails miserably.
I didn't get why he didn't try to catch. Like, I think it should have been he has his arms out and they both go down. Because instead he's like tapping the cigarette ready to light it and she jumps too early.
They do establish that both of them are extremely stupid, like forget to breathe stupid. So it's sort of on brand.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think the better kind of stupid to me would have been like, I'm going to catch her by myself. And they're like, well, you need someone on each side. And he's like, I'll be right in the middle. And it could have been like a Karen and Mean Girls moment when she goes to catch Gretchen by herself.
Yeah. Or they like bonk heads or whatever.
Yeah. So she gets hurt. Mandy gets hurt. And Bambi releases the rest of the kids. And so they drive around they're hungry, and they go to the House of Bad Pies.
Yes. This one is extreme Muppet energy.
Yeah, it's very Happiness Hotel. It's very Happiness Hotel from Caper.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with the twin actresses they have playing the diner waitresses.
Yeah, they have to have been in like Doublemint ads or something. Like I bet people at the time recognize them from some sort of ad campaign or what have you.
Yeah, but they're great, like playing off each other, saying things at the same time, being like bitchy, and then they stop and turn to each other, and they treat each other like a mirror to like check their hair and their lipstick. And I was like, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good. My favorite of them is that the guy orders a Three Stooges pie and she says, come right up, and just plows it into his face.
Yep. He gives him a good pie. One guy gets all you can eat for $1 and she hands him a big plate of food. He takes like one bite and it's like, that's all you can eat for $1.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of those like very silly sort of gags, like, oh, what's the worst thing on the menu? The Tuesday special. What's wrong with that? It's Thursday.
Yeah,
kind of jokes.
that's big Fozzie energy.
Like vaudeville almost.
Oh yeah. So we cut from them to Judge all alone in the gym, and he says like, Mandy doesn't know I exist, and I was like, but y'all are flirting. Like, it's not unreciprocated.
Right.
I'm confused.
Yeah, I agree.
And so he's practicing jumps on the like mini trampoline over the vault. And then we cut to outside the doors and we see the gloved hand like raise a plunger on some dynamite. And then we see there's cartoon dynamite strapped to each of the 4 baby trampoline legs.
It might as well say Acme TNT.
Yes. And I was like, oh, I wonder how this movie's gonna handle the more like death, because it's been a while since we had a death. And so he jumps on the trampoline. They do it like 2 or 3 times, and then the last time he does it and it explodes and sends him launching through the window, and then he goes in the air next to an airplane. And I was like, that's a fun way to get around that.
Some nice great Gonzo stuff.
Yeah, very great Gonzo.
This part is just beyond the pale to me. I guess they were tying back in the fact that there were Japanese tourists,
yeah, who
were at the dead cheerleader thing, because I think it's the same actors and actresses.
I think you're right
doing that,
but it's so bizarre that like in the middle of this they just threw it's Air Tokyo. There's a white woman in full geisha with like literally her eyes taped up, and I was like, well, this is a little pull on the collar moment.
Yeah.
And then she says Godzilla is one of the flight attendants, and I was like, is that racist too? Because that's a funny joke to me. Removed from Tokyo Air. Like, if it was just an airplane and like Godzilla was a flight attendant, I'm into that.
Yeah. Did you recognize who the stewardess was?
No. Who?
So she's Mother Superior in the Pee-wee's Great Adventure, like the movie version. I don't know if that's characters on the show. And then
Mother Superior.
She's Charlie's mom on It's Always Sunny.
I just watched Pee-wee a few weeks ago. I don't remember Mother Superior.
I pulled that off the IMDb. I recognized her more from It's Always Sunny.
I haven't seen It's Always Sunny in a minute.
She's in a bunch of Pee-wee stuff, so maybe he just like was
buddies.
Met her on this, maybe, and yeah.
Or he brought her in.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. The Pee-wee's got that kind of pull on this movie.
Well, maybe. I mean, it's a one-off role. Yeah. I'm sure he was like, "Hey, I'm in the Groundlings. I know people."
Yeah, that's possible.
They'll work for a ham sandwich and a cup of coffee.
There's a good bit where the woman's like, "Oh, my coffee's too cold," and Godzilla breathes fire on her.
And it pulls back. The cup is melted, and she's got that like black sooty, cartoon explosion.
Looney Tune who held a dynamite recently.
Uh-huh. And I like that. And then Judge just kind of flies by the windows and tries to make them open up the door.
Which I thought they were going to do.
I thought maybe, but instead he just like flies up and away, and I was confused. Yes.
He took the very expensive Uber helicopter out of the movie. Like, hey, I got a rope ladder dangling for you, buddy. Come on, climb on up. We'll get you out of here.
Yeah, I feel like they could have done a like a Roger Rabbit splat at the end, like a Judge Reinhold shaped hole in a wall.
Yes, that would have been exactly what I wanted. Or he falls back down onto the trampoline or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
I really like this next sequence here. So, I'm jumping ahead in my notes. This next bit is the toothpaste, right?
Yes, Mandy. Mandy is in this full like fembot 60s nightie. There's a Barbie outfit called Snooze News, and that's exactly what this looks like. It's just, it's a waist length frilly like marabou trimmed negligee.
Yeah.
So she's playing with her like tooth stuffed animals because that's the personality trait they gave her. Which, I mean, it's not misogynistic, so I'll give it a points for that.
The pageant she did was sponsored by a toothpaste.
Was it actually?
Yeah, because at the end they were like, and she'll be brushing her teeth with blah, 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 blah.
Oh, I thought that was just her weirdo family being weird.
Well, I'm saying this is the toothpaste this is a recall to that joke.
Yeah, no, but I think it's interesting that they gave her quirk, I like to brush my teeth.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. She brushes her teeth 10 times a day.
So like she has a Mr. Shiny Teeth doll and a Mr. Tooth Decay doll, and she ends up throwing with Mr. Tooth Decay into the bathroom. And then she's like, I'm going to brush my teeth in front of you. And she opens the medicine cabinet, and it's just toothpaste, which I love, like different kinds of toothpaste.
Like 30 tubes.
The only thing I think would have been better is if it was treated like a wine fridge or a wine cellar, and it was like vintages.
The exact same thing. Or just flavors even, like spearmint, fresh mint, bubble mint.
Or like a vending machine of just toothpaste.
Uh-huh.
So it's funny, she brushes her teeth for like 5 seconds, spits, and is like, I'm going to do it again. And I was like, well, you could have just kept doing it the first time.
I would argue that you have barely started.
So she brushes her teeth, and then the killer reaches through the medicine cabinet and grabs her. And she does a lot of great like goofy face acting with like crossed eyes and all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
So he kills her with a drill, which I guess is supposed to make you think that he's the furniture killer.
Right, but the drill also has a toothbrush attachment on it.
It should have been a comically large toothbrush.
Agreed.
Or like a dentist tool kind of toothbrush. Like it needed to look more toothbrushy.
You could have just taped 4 toothbrushes together in a box and put them into the drill. Like you could do that.
Yeah, it needed to read more toothbrushy than it did.
Agreed.
Because he kills her, and
especially for a movie where women get shish kebab holding giant vegetables. Like, there's no too broad for this.
Yeah,
we're at max broad.
Because he killed. This is the only kill I like didn't love looking at. I was like, this doesn't feel as fun as the others. Because he like drills into her mouth with the toothbrush, and then she starts like toothbrush foaming a lot. And I was like, it would have been funnier if it was like one of those giant toothbrushes you find in like the kids' waiting room of a dentist's office, where all the bristles are stuck together,
exactly
and he like beats her with a toothbrush. Like,
yeah.
That kind of moment.
Yeah.
So she's dead. And then I think this might be my favorite joke, where
that's what I was, this part is what I was leading to, but go ahead.
The Mountie's horse walks into the station by itself and like walks through the door, and then Pee-wee comes in and is like, close the door behind you, we're raising a barn. And I was just like, this is brilliant. There's so much good stuff in here that it's baffling that that it ended up so okay.
Yeah. There's not enough. There's too much space between the good bits. It's like if you imagine a corn on the cob, instead of it being packed with kernels, it's just like there's spare kernels across it.
Yeah.
It's like you'll still enjoy eating it, but it's not like eating a nice satisfying ear of corn on the cob.
Yeah, it's there. Or like a 7-layer dip that is too much like sour cream and salsa, and you're like, well, where's the guac? Where's the beans? Come on.
I do like this bit. We cut back to the warden, and she's on a different phone now, talking to the Mountie, and then she's like, "Oh, I have to leave. They're leading me to the gas chamber." And I was like, "Wow, that's kind of a dark."
I
joke
thought so too.
Oh. Yeah, like, oh, JK, it's a man who looks like professional wrestler King Kong Bundy with a huge bowl of beans sitting next to a toilet that's connected to the other room. It's a fart chamber.
Well, I like the gas chamber had a neon light that said gas chamber.
Yes.
Like, I have to imagine someone on the crew just happened to have that or something. Like, that's...
Or took it home with them.
But, like, again, that seems like an expense that you wouldn't... Like, why have that expense in this movie?
Yeah, I don't know, but I liked it very much. I was glad it was there.
Oh, yeah. So then we cut to Andy, Randy, Sandy, and Candy sitting around a table, and I genuinely loved this moment of dialogue and writing. It felt very Clue to me, like similar to like the 1 + 2 + 2 + 1 +1. No, it's 2 + 1 +1.
Right.
Where they're like, it was like, Andy wants some candy, and they all go around, and then Candy says no, and then Randy wants it, and he's like, can I have Mandy's candy? And then the whole time the camera's like spinning in a circle on the table, like at each person, kind of like that 70s show.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And at one point it stops on Andy, but Sandy starts talking, and he like looks at the camera and like jerks his thumb, and then the camera quickly pivots over to her to continue her line. And I was like, that's so great.
Yeah, it's like you said, like everybody involved in making this knew exactly what kind of movie they were making. They just didn't quite get all the way there.
I think it needed more, and I would put the blame on writing. Like, it needed more in the script for them to go off of, or you need to give these people just like free reign, like do whatever you want.
We talked before about like there's kind of a through line to hang your hat on and then you make your jokes. There's really almost no through line to this. Like we know that they're going to die, but we don't learn anything about the killer motivation until the very final bit. We don't learn why, and then we do learn why, and it's too late. So.
And it's not even like in, to use Sleepaway Camp, where we see the killer and we realize that we've known them the whole time and they've been a part of the movie. When they reveal Tab Hunter as the killer, I was like, well, he hasn't been around since the beginning. So that seems
right.
It felt like very Bob's Burgers. Like, a lie is not a twist. You can't just say this guy from the beginning is the killer, because that's not fair.
Mm-hmm. You know how I feel about being lied to at the movies. It's a well-established canon. I do not care for it.
You know what? It should have been Bambi and him should have been husband and wife.
Yeah, that would have made a lot more sense. Or, like I said, your idea of where cheerleader is much funnier.
Yes, obviously where cheerleader is the best of the ideas, but have him be her husband who pops in now and again.
Right. I think they just couldn't afford that much Tab Hunter. I think they got 3
You think
days
in 82 he was pulling that kind of money?
I mean, I think it was just as much as anything else, like, I just don't want to do that.
That's possible.
Like, I was a heartthrob 30 years ago. People still respect me.
I'm in the closet still at this point. First they go to play poker, and right off the bat I was like, this is going to be a bit, because they say it's going to be strip poker, and then he goes ante up and everyone puts a shoe on the table as like, and I was like, oh, hang on, what are we doing here?
And then I really like, they cut away and then they cut back to them. They all have on those visors and they're all smoking like various.
They look like the dog painting.
Yes, they did look like exactly like the dog painting. We go over to the storyline with the Mountie, and it's Pee-wee and the Mountie and the horse, and they're walking through like trying to investigate the escaped killers, and there's a dresser.
Well, no, my first favorite joke they walk up to, it says cemetery / lovers lane. Cemetery hours.
Oh, yes.
9 to 9, necking hours 9 to 5.
Yeah. But they encounter this dresser and it's like, that's Trixie. I'd recognize those legs anywhere. And then they start to walk away and Pee-wee pulls the drawer open and he looks into it and they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, all right, I was trying to get into her drawers.
It's such a great joke. Stupid. And then the Mountie's like, well, stop that. Get over here. How was it? But how was it? It was like... And then
I just love the whole like he's turning people into furniture. No, he's literally turning people into furniture.
And it's not even like any kind of anthropomorphic. It's just, this is a coffee table with a cop badge glued onto it. This is a dresser with a necklace on it. Like, that's it.
This is not Beauty and the Beast. There is not a talking, singing.
There's no face. It's a name tag situation. Yeah. And then the doctor turns out is evil, and I was like, okay, but I don't care. Like,
right. I would much rather this storyline be attached to the other movie that I've been watching.
Yeah, like this should just be stuck on the other movie, because they all end up dying in like 10. All 3 of these bad guys die in the next like 2 minutes, and I was like, okay, well,
right.
Then what were we doing?
Yeah, exactly. Then this storyline wraps up, and I'm like, okay, well, does that mean no more Pee-wee in the movie? Like, what's happening?
Disappointment. Now? So yeah, we cut back to the gang playing poker, and then we cut to Bambi making a milk bath with bags of cookies.
So this is a reference to back in the beginning where it wasn't Bambi rifling through Tab Hunter's locker, right?
Yeah, it was.
I didn't think so. Oh, it was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, she mentions that she'd take milk baths.
Because that's like a thing for like royalty.
I guess?
Yeah.
Sounds pretty terrible.
Bathing in milk and honey is like a thing for like old beauty regimen thing.
I
Because
see.
In Snow White and the Huntsman, Charlize Theron does it, but it's like obviously not actual milk, but then later they like dump it out for all the people to like drink or whatever.
Oh, that sounds like a weird kink thing that they put in that Disney movie.
I mean, Snow White and the Huntsman's not a Disney movie.
It's not?
No, Snow White and the Huntsman is
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna guess Universal. I don't know. Charlize Theron is the only reason to watch that movie and the sequel.
Okay.
No, it's Emily Blunt in the sequel. Is the Ice Queen.
I see.
So she's surrounded by bags of cookies, and she's taking her milk bath, reading a magazine, dipping cookies into the bath, like owning this whole thing.
First, she sprinkles some cookies in as if it were a bath bomb.
Or like rose petals.
Yeah.
But it's great. So the killer starts stabbing, and he stabs through the magazine, stabs a couple cartons like he can't get her, and she doesn't notice until he picks up her bag of cookies, and then she's like, "My cookies!"
Yeah. Like, well, I respect the energy.
Yeah. And then he kills her, and I was like, well, now I'm incredibly confused. Like, who is the killer supposed to be? Because I assumed it was going to be her.
Right.
I was like, we killed Judge Reinhold.
It turns out to be Tab Hunter is deeply baffling.
It's not satisfying. So they're all actual clothes gambling. Because I was like, that's a fun twist on, strip poker teen sex comedy.
Right.
That they're like, I see your bra and I raise you panties.
Yes.
And so Sandy leaves with one of the boys to go bone in the basement. And that leaves Candy and the other boy to like start necking. And I genuinely forgot she was interested in the Mountie. Yes. I fully forgot that was a plot point. Because then later she ends up with him, and I was like, oh, all right.
Hey, she's an independent woman.
There is zero judgment. I just thought it was a weird thing that there was not a line of dialogue about.
Uncommon for a movie to make that decision that she would have like a romantic gesture with the Mountie, have sex with a different man, and then end up with the Mountie at the end, and no one mentions it.
There's not a line to be said. Like, even if he was like, they start to kiss, and he's like, I thought you were interested in that, in the Mountie. Like something that acknowledges the rest of the movie.
Why do you taste like maple syrup?
There we go. She's like, let's get somewhere comfortable, and telekinesis is the bed down. The other two get down.
And he's like not at all surprised by it. And I know this is a big, broad universe, but if I was sitting next to, I don't care if like there was a Mountie running around, but if a woman turned down the bed with laser vision, I would have some questions.
Yeah, a few questions. They go to the sex ed room, which is just a bed in the basement.
Yeah, I thought that was a really delightful little sight gag.
And then she's like, these sheets aren't designer. And he's like, well, here's a framed picture of Neiman Marcus on the nightstand.
Yeah. All they have there is high quality bed sheets and pillowcases.
His like getting her engine going, sexy talk is thread count.
And then a really sorry, Mom. Skip ahead 15 seconds. The line being, he hears a noise. He goes.
Oh my God, this was great.
He's like, yeah. Do you want me to come with you? Oh, that'd be nice if we can work out the timing. And then he walks away.
No, he leaves. She says it, and he comes back in and kisses her, and is like, if we can work out the timing, and then leaves by himself. And it's just
so good.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he goes to explore a noise, and he goes through it's like one of the swingy doors that doesn't have a push or a pull. He goes through the other side, looks around, comes back on the other door, looks around, goes back through the first door. And I was like, this could have been slightly improved with a revolving glass, with either a glass door or a revolving door.
Right.
He gets killed. He gets got. And then, so Andy was sleeping with Candy. I did write notes with names because they finish boning, and she's like, you should go back to your room. And he does, and sees Randy's dead body and screams forever, which I loved.
Yeah.
It's a full-on
I also knew his name here because I wrote Randy is dead under the horse head.
Yes.
Like, he must say Randy very pointedly.
Like, taking pauses to take a breath to scream more.
Yeah.
Not even caring if it's like what the scream sound. It's great. And then he gets got.
It's excellent. Through the bed, like Jason Voorhees style.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then Candy opens the door to Sandy, and she's got the megaphone stabbed through her, and she falls on the ground. And so she like leans in and puts her ear to the cone, and she's like, I don't hear a heartbeat, and runs away.
Also, before she came in, Carol Kane was like doing story time with her dolls. It was very odd.
That was a choice. So she runs around. I genuinely loved that she's running around doing the final girl circuit, runs into Mandy's room, sees her dead body on the bathroom floor, and stops screaming and just like grabs the door and closes it. I was like, yes, very that.
Too much of this, thank you. I've had enough.
Very much like Clue, where he's like, "What?" When Colonel Mustard's like, "Nope, still 2 dead bodies. We're good."
Meanwhile, Pee-wee is serving like a very nice, fancy dinner.
He made a nice stew for I think it's lieutenant and his horse.
Yeah,
and then they're like, lieutenant's like, "Me and the horse are gonna go up to the college. We'll leave now." And Pee-wee's like, "What do I do with all these leftovers? I'll have to freeze them. You eat leftovers, but the horse doesn't." And I was like, this world we've created is beautiful.
Yeah, I wanted to spend more time with Pee-wee, and it like Pee-wee's Big Adventure and this world are pretty close.
It's
like in terms of their broad energy.
Like if Pee-wee met this character on Pee-wee's Big Adventure, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, there could be a really delightful bit where Pee-wee of Big Adventure meets this Pee-wee and is like, "You look just like me!" Ah! Like that kind of nonsense could ensue, and I would be here for it.
Very much. So the lieutenant says,
"What number am I thinking of now?" Kind of like stupid.
"We should trade places!"
Let me try on your shoes. You know, like that's sort of insanity.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
So the lieutenant says, "Won't you get off the horse's back?" And I was like, oh, I realized there's 7 minutes left in the movie, so it's not going to happen. I was like,
yeah,
we missed a great opportunity for the lieutenant to say, "Won't you get off his back, Johnson?" And then we cut to Pee-wee literally sitting on the horse's back.
Yes.
Like that we were so close.
Yeah.
It was there.
Yeah, we're right there. It was right there.
There's the Jaws theme in the locker room as Candy hides in a locker from the hunter. Or the killer, and we see the killer's wearing a cheerleader skirt and has painted nails.
I see. There's a pretty good Freudian slip you made there.
What?
You said the hunter instead of the
oh
killer,
yes,
and it's Tab Hunter.
You're right. Like picks at his. I love that picking at the nails with the knife. It's great. They scuffle, and it's revealed that the killer is the quarterback or whatever from the beginning of the movie that we haven't seen for an hour, and I was like, this isn't fair.
And obviously this is where the movie becomes a really elevated piece of art that's really seriously talking about the problems of toxic masculinity that run rampant through our patriarchal society. And this man who couldn't express himself the way he wanted to instead becomes a raging homicidal maniac. And I, for one, was really glad to see
I was
this
shocked.
silly comedy had a very, very salient point to make about such a big part of masculine culture, football and all that business. No, instead there's laser eyes again.
Instead Edie McClurg ghost pops up as like an angel on the shoulder.
That's right.
And then being
yes.
like, "Don't you carry my knife?" And then the coach pops up as a bubble on the other shoulder, and then the coach bubble strangles Edie McClurg bubble.
Yes. And then he chases Carol Kane some more.
Yeah. It's so bizarre to me that like Tab Hunter took this role. I was like, how are you not like, no, I will never. Nope. I'm not gonna play a role that insinuates.
He was very famously not out, but everybody knew he was gay, right? That's the whole deal with Tab Hunter.
Yes and no. So okay. He was famously linked to like Natalie Wood and
Oh, was he on the boat?
No, he was not on the boat. No, that's okay. Walking Ho.
And Nicholson too, right?
Jack Nicholson? No, it's just Walken.
I thought Nicholson was on the boat.
No, okay. I think the only people on the boat were Natalie Wood, her husband, Walken, and the boat captain, as far as I know.
Okay. Because there's always been like the sort of like wink wink nudge nudge like Walken might have a career because he kept his mouth shut.
Yeah, I mean, a friend texted me once, like out of the blue, like it haunts me sometimes to know that Christopher Walken probably knows what happened to Natalie Wood and just hasn't said, like it. It's chilling to think about sometimes. Allegedly.
Yeah.
You
said probably. It's okay.
Yeah.
You didn't. We did not. I did not say. There was no implication that he was involved.
No.
In this podcast. Just that he was on the boat.
Yes, he was there. Like I remember reading that there's a headline that said Natalie Wood and Tab wouldn't. Like like people, they were like winky about it. But he never came out. I don't know when he officially came out because he was married to a man for a while and like in the end was with a man. But I would assume that was he probably came out in like the 90s.
Yeah, I mean it had to be much later.
Yeah, probably around the time Rock Hudson.
He was famous.
Rock Hudson had AIDS.
Yeah,
in France.
That would make sense. I was so as soon as I saw this, I was like, oh god, like. The fact that this movie is just like, I wanted to be a cheerleader and I couldn't, and so that drove me crazy, and it wasn't anything beyond that.
Shocking.
Feels like a miracle. It's just like, oh, thank God. Well, I was so afraid of what you were
also,
going to
by the time
next.
They reveal, there's 5 minutes left in the movie, so they don't have time to do anything.
Right. But like, the big end reveal of Sleepaway Camp is obviously like the character you thought was a woman actually has a penis. Oh my God. And like the fact that they don't do that here, it's
because he's still wearing his football uniform with the pads and a cheer skirt. So like,
it's very silly.
Yeah. They run out to the football field. I
like the bit Carol Kane on the football field like has a cup of soda or something.
She takes it from Pepe.
Oh,
like as though he's like
Pepe and Salt are having a picnic, right?
Yeah, on the football field, and like the trays of water for marathon runners, the cups. That's how she treats it when he's holding it. So she like stops and takes a breather to sip, and then realizes Tab Hunter is on the statue. So she uses her telekinesis to throw stuff at him, including the kitchen sink. Which, hey, I love that pun.
Yeah.
Not a pun. It's just that word play. Very Roger Rabbit.
And then she starts yelling like as announcer voice.
She grabs a microphone.
You've got the football. What will you do?
And does like, he goes down the field. And so Tab Hunter just takes off running. And then she telekinesis the statue to chase him and squish him.
Yeah, it's pretty silly, but delightful.
And then the Mountie shows up and they ride away. And that's it.
Yeah, he swings her up, onto the horse and just clip-clops out of the movie.
And then we get a Jumbotron ending where we get like everyone's best line and like so-and-so as Sandy, so-and-so as Glenn or whatever. And I was like, okay, I guess. But like this movie was so short.
It's 74-ish minutes because it's like once this starts, there's about 4 minutes and there's like 2 and change. So it might even be closer to 70.
Well, I think it's 82. It's 80 minutes or 80 or 82 minutes of like the runtime.
80.
And so
it's like just over 80.
So yeah, you take out at least 5 minutes. It had so much promise.
I was shocked. Yeah. It's one of those ones where it's like, I think I would recommend this just because it's got a bunch of stuff that I liked, and it's so short that it never drags, which is normally the problem with something like this.
It's funny. Like, I looked up reviews because I wanted to see contemporary reviews
Yeah.
But yeah, contemporary meaning of the time it came out.
Of the time.
Yeah. I couldn't find any. I could not find a single review for this movie, which is shocking considering how many people were in it.
I don't think it was a big deal at the time.
And then there were some current day reviews, and one was like an hour and 75 minutes never felt so long. And I was like, I mean, it maybe drags for a few minutes in the middle, but like it's breezy.
Yeah, and there's a solid joke at least every 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, you get several jokes.
You could do way worse than this.
There's more jokes in this than in any of the blank movies from the early 2000s.
Yes, for sure. Like your date movie or what have you.
Epic movie or whatever the frick.
Yeah. I'm sorry I bring up date movie so much. It's just that it was like, I had a real thing stuck in my craw because you liked it and you were like, it's really funny. And I was like, I don't think it's really funny. And you're like, no, it's really funny. And then we watched it and I was just like seething the whole time.
Oh yeah. I mean, I look back now and I hate that I watched that. Like it's garbage.
We were 5 years apart, so you were probably 9. Like it was jokes for a 9-year-old. Like you shouldn't feel bad about it, but I was too old for it and I was seething.
Yeah.
I was also probably up my own ass, which is, the state of being for a lot of my life. I would give this a light recommend. There's like
it's hard to find
versions of it. Yeah, well, it's bizarrely, it's not available anywhere for rental. There's some very shitty versions of it on YouTube, or you can pay it's one of those movies that insanely has a $40 or $45 Blu-ray version put out by, I think it was Vinegar Syndrome, one of those boutique.
Oh.
They get it and remaster it and put it out. And I just I don't mean this to be mean, but this is a movie you did that? Like, who's buying a $40 Blu-ray of Pandemonium? Like, what is the
so
audience
weird
for that?
Well, this feels like prime Shudder real estate. Like, yes. I don't understand how this isn't on Shudder.
It should be on Shudder. Yeah. Yeah. Or the depths of Prime or a Tubi. Like, how is this? The answer almost always in situations like this is no one knows who owns the rights and therefore no one cares.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it was probably made by one studio that went out and its rights got bought by another studio and got bought by another studio. I remember hearing a story on something else where a writer was trying to track down who had the rights to a specific character that was like a side character in something else. And it turned out to be owned by Fox or Disney or a major corporation. And they basically told him we think we own it, but we don't care enough to go looking for it. And so we won't do this for you. And the person that was the dead end of I can't proceed.
They couldn't even be just do it.
No, because if they don't own it, it could be a problem.
Oh, so I don't understand how there's not a control F of some kind for who do we own?
For certain things, I think it's so minor that it never gets digitized, and it's in some filing cabinet in some storage facility and somewhere. And it was he was they straight up told me, we think we own it. We can't confirm it because we're not willing to do the work. So you'd have to do it at your own risk.
Honest.
Which I thought was funny, but I assume that's what happens in these situations. It's probably a bunch of studios are gone and now no one knows who owns this, and therefore it just rots away. Because there's way worse shit around that is on various streaming services. That this could be a much better use of your time than many of those things.
I agree.
So light recommend, but there is some really terrible quality versions of it on YouTube, which is maybe why I thought the horse puppet was a puppet in some scenes.
Oh, maybe.
But yeah, this was a pretty fun one. So thank you, Michelle, for
yes, thank you.
We had a good time here. Thank you so much for listening. Listener Request Month continues. Next week will be
not next week, but
not next week. Sorry, next episode, which should be the 17th, will be War of the Roses with Danny DeVito, and then the following episode is Outrageous Fortune on the 31st. Is that right? Okay. So that's the rest of this month coming up. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Don't forget to head over to patreon.com/dissecting the 80s. There will be a bonus episode early June, most likely, on the Frog Dreaming,
aka The Quest.
So that'll be the bonus. But there's right now, if you sign up at the $5 level, more than 15 hours of bonus content that you get access to instantaneously. When you sign up, you get everything. You don't just get the new stuff going forward. You get the whole back catalog. So
heavy hitters hiding in there. That. Top Gun.
Yes.
Footloose. Dirty Dancing. Roger Rabbit.
Yes. All of that is there. So, and you will also get the archive of all the old episodes that we have pulled from the feed, because we don't want people listening to our poorly produced audio anymore and making judgments about the podcast. So everybody on the Patreon, no matter what level, gets those episodes as of May 1. So you're hearing this and that has happened. So you get all of that content plus all of the old content as well that has been tucked away, not because we're embarrassed by the content, but because we're embarrassed by the audio quality.
Yes.
We were recording with Rock Band mics.
I mean, I'd be more than happy to do another Golden Girls episode or Murder, She Wrote.
We could go, we could go back to those. I don't think they sound unlistenable, but I don't want, first impressions matter.
They do.
People are like, why do you sound like shit? So I don't want to sound like shit. That's where we're at. So thank you so much for listening to the show. I have been Trip Lano.
I will always be Andrew Lano.
Until next time.
Don't you forget about me.
Dissecting the 80s is a Chum Some of This production.